Wagwan people, how's it going? Hope everyone's having a good day. Nice weather out there. That's always a blessing, especially after all the rain and stuff we've had the past, 3-4 weeks. It's been horrendous, isn't it? But anyway, I was going to talk about growing up in Haslemere. There's always lots and lots of us, lots of, when we were teenagers, lots of us hanging around. From hanging around up at the crossroads, down to the park parade, to the Spinney Park, to the fields, bluebells. There's always people around, but sort of at least 10, 12 times a year, one of us would have a free house. And I remember some of the parties, the house parties, they were off the chain. I'll never forget them. I mean, like, there was one party that I went to. And it's this girl I went to school with called Gemma. Her parents had gone out and brought all new carpet for the house. And back in the 90s, you could get this thing called hooch. It was like it was an alcoholic pop drink. But they had the blackcurrant hooch, and this girl, she'd obviously, all the girls loved drinking blackcurrant hooch back then. So this Gemma girl, she's asked all her mates to get blackcurrant hooch, not thinking about the brand new carpet that's been laid. Oh my God, it looked like a murder scene by the end of this house party. The amount of hooch that was spilt on this mum and dad's carpet, on her mum and dad's carpet, was just horrendous. And I'll never forget Gemma. She was crying her eyes out because she suddenly realised that she was going to die when her parents got back. There was another girl around here called Laura, and her parents went away all the time. Like, literally, her parents went away like every other weekend. And she was left. I think she had older brothers, and they were meant to be looking after her, but they were going out themselves and just leaving her at home. And then she would invite a load of us because we were all mates and that. Do you know what I mean? And we'd just go around hers and just have parties. I had a few house parties with my parents. A long time ago, obviously. Just like growing up in Haslemere, there was always someone's parents went away, and then there was always a free house. But I mean, I remember one house party I went to, and I was having a bit of trouble with some bloke called Peter, and he knew that I was at this house party. I think it was around Joe's house. Joe Walker, her name was. So we were all around Joe's, and he knew I was there, so he's turned up with 2 of his mates to come and get me. What he didn't know was I was in this house with all the older Haslemere boys, so the guys that were like 2 years older. So I was like 14, these guys were like 16, 17. And so this Peter guy's banged on the door and said, I want John Dugan out here now. And then someone said, oh, sounds like Peter's being a bit aggy with Dugan. And all of a sudden, all the older lot will come running out of the house, and they were like, "What's the problem? You got a problem with Dugan?" Because I was really small as a teenager. I was literally tiny. I was a tiny bloke, tiny, yeah. And all the girls used to think I was really cute, having blonde curtains. Obviously, I don't have that now, and always got looked after. I remember I was very good friends with Jamie Prentice, Chris Prentice. And Jamie was going out with a coloured chap called Leighton Barnes, who was from Wickham. So we're from Haslemere. Wickham's about 4 miles down the road. And I'd fallen out with a girlfriend, and she'd got her family. They've come to visit. So she's got her cousins to come down the park parade to come and have a go at me, just try and scare me. And these guys have pinned me up against the wall where the bookies are to give me a hiding. And as they've done that, Leighton Barnes, who else was it? There was Tyrone. There was a couple of others. They've all come round the corner, going to go and chill at Jamie. She lived above the shops. And as they've walked round the corner, obviously Leighton, he knows that I'm friends with Chris and Jamie. He said, "Dugan, you alright, mate? What's up?" And I'm just stood there like, I was basically being held against the wall. And then these guys would like turn around like, oh my God, because there was like about, 8 blokes behind them. that were backing me. And then, so these two guys that pinned me up against the wall then got a massive hiding outside the bookies in broad daylight by all these guys. And it was all because, because Jamie, she had my back. I was Chris's best friend. Chris was her brother. And Leighton was her partner. And obviously, he was just helping me out. He could see I was in trouble. I mean, I stood no chance. I was only like 13, 14. Tiny little bloke. And I had these two like 17-year-olds pinned me up against the side. And like I said, they were going to give me a hiding, but they ended up getting a hiding themselves. And then after that, a lot of people in Haslemere suddenly realised Dougan knows the older boys, you know, the Wickham boys. And then people didn't tend to want to mess with me because they got a bit scared. But growing up in Haslemere, like I remember some of the fights we used to see. There was always like rivalry, like Presswood and Haslemere, even Homer Green and Haslemere had rivalry at one point. My mate Michael Farrell, he used to have a garage in his mum's garden right at the back, and his mum used to let him and his mate sit in there and listen to music. This is how old it is. Yeah, we were listening to Salt and Pepper on a mixtape. Yeah. Now, Salt and Pepper were a female rap group from the 90s, so that just shows how long ago this is. So, like, I used to be their lookout. I'd sit outside the front, and if I saw a carload of boys, the Presswood boys or the Homer Green boys, I had to go and tell Farrell and the others that, you know, these guys are in the area. That was my job. But, just, like, growing up in Haslemere was a great time. The house parties, like the gangs of us, there were so many of us. Like, this is what I mean, like, I'm living in back in Haslemere now. I'm looking around and I'm seeing, like, there's no one around. There's no kids. Like, kids don't hang around. I think the other day I walked through the shop the other day and I saw 3 boys. They had a bag of beers trying to open up beers on the back of a bench, and that's the most I've seen. Just these 3 15-year-old chaps. And I'm just like, what is going on? When I was down there, when I was their age, so 14, 15, let's say, I was literally, there must have been about 30 to 40 of us down the Park Parade. What's going on? Well, I know what's going on. It's all this computer games. They've taken over kids' lives. They don't want to go out no more. They want to stay indoors, play online games. It's mental. It's just a completely different era, and I actually am glad that I grew up when I did, because, you know, I had some great fun. I've become a very sociable person because of the way we lived back then. We always wanted to be around people, not sat in a house playing on a computer, tapping on some buttons, talking on a microphone. Nah, that weren't for us. We used to play computer games, but not like the kids do now. I mean, you were lucky back then if you had a computer and a game console, because they weren't cheap. But so growing up, it's a completely different era. I mean, you used to be able to walk around Haslemere back in the day, and you'd walk past the house and you'd hear the house party. That's how you used to find it. There was one time, this was back in 2000. This is, say, sort of like 2008. And I was up Homer Green, sat up in a barn with a couple of blokes, just smoking, drinking, and we could hear music, drum and bass. And me and this chap Lewis, we could hear it coming from Haslemere Woods. We walked down from Homer Green towards Haslemere Woods, walked into the fields, and we followed the music. And we'd come out into the field behind the wreck, Haslemere Wreck. There was a big tent, DJ in there. And it was someone's 40th, and they were part of the raving scene. And they basically got permission to put his tent up and have a little party, but they had to turn the music off by midnight. This was at around 10 o'clock. And then literally, I've walked in there, and it was Summer Tunnel Crew. They put the party on. We've gone in there and literally just, it was brilliant. Literally, this is what I mean. Like, back in the day, that's how you used to find these raves as well. You know, sometimes you'd pull up where you'd hear it was going to be, and then you'd stick your head out the window and see if you can hear the music. But yeah, different generation now. You know, kids don't want to go out, they just want to stay in. I think if you got a child from now and took them back to the 90s, when there was no computer games and you literally had to find your own way to entertain yourself, like making fires, throwing deodorant cans on them, you know, that's what we used to do for fun. Crazy, dangerous. I remember once we made a fire behind the shops, and Tom DeWolf had thrown a deodorant can on the fire, and it was underneath this little part of the building, but there was a pipe above it. It was a gas pipe, which we'd forgotten, you know, that this pipe was there. So Tom's ran back down there to put the fire out. As he's gone down there, the aerosol cans exploded, and he's flown backwards. He burnt all his eyebrows off in the front of his hair. He had bits of metal stuck in his jeans, hot metal. Luckily it didn't touch his skin, and he didn't get hurt. He just lost his eyebrows and the front of his hair, but it didn't actually burn him. Yeah, because stuff we used to do, like when we were younger, because like I said, we didn't have computer games. We didn't have Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus. You had like 4 channels on your TV and that's it. Now you've got too much on your TV. Like, there's just so much to choose from. In fact, it's hard to choose to watch something sometimes, because you're just literally like constantly just like, shall I watch this, shall I watch that? It's just so much on. But anyway, yeah, that was just a little thing about me growing up. Yeah, fun times, and yeah, it's just completely different. Like, you don't really hear of like house parties and things like that, you know. We used to go out drinking when we were like 16 in pubs. It was so easy to get into a pub back then. Nowadays, it's harder, which I don't blame the system for doing that, because alcohol is not something you want the younger generation to get their hands on easily. It's one of the worst ones out there. But anyway, I'm going to go now. It was just a quick little chat about growing up. Peace, everyone. Love, and stay tuned.